Hi, welcome everybody. I'm here with Sara Aumann. I know it's going to be a very special podcast today. So, Sara, thank you so much for coming on, being with me today. In 2015, Sara experienced a series of profound losses. She lost her father, she lost two brothers, grandfather, and a pregnancy, all in a 16 months window. In the years that follow, she went from being a world-traveling wanderer that explored 54 countries on 6 continents to working 65 plus hours a week as a program leader for the Landmark Forum, to quitting it all to live as a soul-led entrepreneur serving people in times of great change. Welcome, Sara. You consider yourself a soul and sound healer, and I look forward to learning more about what that means to you. We got connected through a mutual friend of mine who I've known for a long time, and when I came to Pittsburgh last time, a couple months ago, she invited me to attend one of your webinars, and I think it was called Marketing with Soul or
Soul marketing, yeah.
Soul marketing. And because that's, right up my alley, I was intrigued and I came, and I have to tell you, I was amazed at the way that you allowed your intuition to come forth and the way you just, you were like, okay, forget about what I wanted to do. And then just let's go with what's here right now. And you gave us very specific instructions on how to work with AI in a very sort of intuitive, spiritual kind of way. And I was like, oh, that's genius, because, machine learning is machine learning. And of course, you can instruct it to teach us about manifestation. And so it was very cool. I loved it. And when Anne suggested that I have you on, I was like, yay, let's do it.
Oh, great. Thanks so much.
Yeah. So tell us, what do you do and what's a soul and sound healer?
I was sharing with somebody recently, a lot of times when you hear of a sound healer, at least for myself, you picture somebody sitting with these, thousands of dollars of crystal bowls around them and maybe gongs and things like that. And for me, sound healing started when I was 3 years old and my grandmother was dying in home.
Wow.
And my mom said that when I was a little girl, as early as you remember, I would sit down next to my grandma in the hospital bed and I would just touch her head and sing. And it wasn't songs, I would sing what I now know is soul language or
Wow.
soul song.
Wow.
And I remember that, I don't have a lot of like under 5 years old memories, but I remember being with my grandma Jean. And so sound healing, I've always been a singer. I've always loved singing. I've always sang to soothe myself when I'm happy, when I'm sad. I've been told a lot I should sing, but it was like I used to sing in Vail, Colorado and après skis, like bars. And that was always like not quite it. It was like, this is it, but it's not what my soul wants to do. And so when I heard and met Dr. and Master Shah, who's my spiritual teacher, and he had Tao song, it was like training me to utilize my Tao song. So you're channeling song that's healing for the person you're singing. And it's the most natural way I've ever served people who are in transition, who are in grief, who are in pain. And so there's my transmission of my gift for healing to others, but there's also, in my opinion, so tomorrow night I'm having a new moon sound healing with about 12 women in my home. And I'm going to teach them to sing certain mantras to self-clear themselves in their first 4 chakras. So there's also teaching people to heal themselves with their own voice. So that's what I consider a sound healer. A soul healer is inside of sound healing, and it's somebody it's tools that go to the root cause of the blockage of whatever the pain or suffering is. Distinct from energy healing, I'm trained in Reiki as well, which is the movement of energy in the body, also needed. But soul healing is the root. And when you get into that, and you open your spiritual channels, you check in with yourself, you can start to see that while you might have pain in your shoulder, it's not starting there. It might be something else in a soul memory, an emotion, an interaction, a loss, right? So that's very briefly what I would say soul healing is. It's going to the root cause of the issue and clearing that negative information or negative karma.
And then you also like go, to previous lives, or how far does it go back, or do you stay sort of within this current life, or how does that work?
Yeah. So when my brother Arthur died in 2015, he was the kind of first one of my, I would call, dark night of the soul. I think most people go through at least one of those in their lifetime. And when Arthur died, he was 24, and he was really communicative from the other side.
Mm.
So for me, I started developing my spiritual channels then. And so do I go to past lives? Yes, and it depends, right? It could be that I can get soul information from the soul of one of your body, could be from the soul of your grandma.
Mm.
And I don't have as much training. I am working on that with Akashic record reading or past life reading. That's not my expertise, but I do have teachers that do read the Akashic records, and I have understood. I've shared with you, I'm going through IVF. I've had 2 pregnancy losses, my own near-death experience through pregnancy loss. So I've really gone deep into past lives to understand why I'm dealing with infertility. So I do believe in past lives. I do believe in karma from past lives. So and if somebody's not open to that, you don't go there, right? Everybody, there's so many belief systems.
Right. No, that's, yeah, I mean, I don't know that you know much what I do, but that's kind of what I do. I go with people deep down and clear whatever needs to be cleared.
Yeah.
Whether it's IVF, why they can't get pregnant, or why they can't make $1 million. I use the kinesiology just to show us where we need to go. When I talked to you, I shared with you that my mother had just passed, and I haven't really talked about this publicly, so probably going to cry, which is natural.
Yeah.
And it's difficult, it's difficult. And how do you assist somebody with dealing with something like that? And for me, I actually had the good fortune of being there and getting there in time, because somehow I got the messages, from various people that she was waiting for me, and I took that as don't take that lightly. And then I got to be the one from, all the 3 children that she has, that got to be with her when she took her last breath. Yeah. So, which is, I think, both a great honor and both a great, I don't know, I'm not quite yet with the honor.
Yeah.
I still feel it like a weight on my shoulders.
Yeah, that's actually the word that I kept hearing as you said it was honor. And with people, when I'm talking to them, everyone's really different in what's supportive of them to process their grief. And so how do you honor your mother? How do you honor her memory? And how do you continue to complete for yourself whatever's incomplete? And as I know, so many people die with regrets, with things incomplete. It's actually, I would say it's more rare for somebody to be complete with the loss than not. And so for me, with people, I've definitely supported people to create rituals, to create ceremonies, to honor. But it's not what you think of, like putting our parents on a pedestal for somebody that they were not. It's everything they were, everything they weren't, and what you need that you want to carry forward, because you are the living representation of your mother, and your father and yourself. You're 50% them and 50% you, is my belief.
Right.
And we carry their karma. And actually, I believe, we have the ability to complete karma for our ancestors. And that's why when we honor them in these rituals and ceremonies, and through our own healing,
right,
that they get more healed, they get to transition more peacefully. But I've worked a lot of different ways. Some people are really, type A, and they want to like do something. And sometimes that's great. When my dad died, a year later, we had a golf gathering. My dad was a huge golfer, and we all got together and played golf and raised a little money for a an organization he was a president of when he died. And for other people, I work deeply in the lungs. So the lungs in traditional Chinese medicine are what carry grief.
Mm-hmm.
And what I just learned today, I was actually processing grief and money. I don't find that very different from grief and fertility. Grief is grief, but it was interesting because what we were talking about is the metal element, the lungs, the skin, they regulate energy. And so people don't realize grief takes an enormous amount of energy. And everything that you normally could do, what you have capacity or space for, is lessened. So partly it's actually working for people to clear through sound healing, through sounds. I also work with Chinese calligraphy art to clear the body. And, these practices, there's a space for talk therapy. That's not what I do. And, getting to move through sound, to cry, to be in the presence of and receive song blessings. That's a lot of how I do work with people. But it just depends. I really do. As you said, I work intuitively with people with what they need. I have a lot of different skills back there. And then somebody will say something and I'm like, that's the thing we're supposed to do. It could be totally different
Right.
for each person. But yeah.
But that makes a lot of sense to me, what you just said, in terms of, that it takes a lot of energy to process grief. So, before you came on, I shared with you, I got really, really ill, and you can still hear it. And of course, it's the lungs. And I know, from my own work, that lungs is, grieving and, sort of like that deep sadness. And then to be smart enough to say, okay, I need to create space for myself and make time for myself so that I can be with the process. Last night I listened to a lot of Chopin because it's just really soothing me, and I had this insight that that I took on something from my mother that I carried around all my life, that I'd like to actually
Give
now
back.
that not necessarily give back, because this idea of helping our ancestors or helping our family to clear their karma, I have this new notion of, oh, maybe it can just be transformed, because why do I need to give this blanket of depression back to her? She
Sure.
she doesn't need it, and say, oh, good. So I didn't resist it, but moving myself into not so, just be with it, and then just see how it comes and goes. And then it was clear that the time is coming of where I get to have this opportunity just to sort of transform it and transmute it and just clear it. So because she doesn't need it, the world doesn't need it, and I frankly don't want it. I don't.
Yeah.
So, and there's an opportunity.
And one of the things that's really beautiful in how I practice now, and I sort of did before, but now it's really intentional, is the beauty of someone being in the soul world is you can invite their soul at any time to practice with you, chant with you, heal with you. And our ancestors really do want to come and support us. They want to offer us guidance. They want to clear the way. They want to protect us. But when we are offering and doing, I do a lot of forgiveness practice work just to bring inner joy and inner peace. But whatever practices you have, when you invite their soul to come, they will. And that's how, because if it's, I mean, I like what you said, and I'm like kicking it around because I've been in different, iterations of courses, things where it's like you give back what's not yours because it's not yours. And we don't clear other people's karma. But when somebody's in the soul world, it's, I mean, we're getting a little, it's like out here, right? It's in the
Right.
kingdom.
Right.
I think it's sometimes with a mother, a father, it's so inextricably interwoven into us that we barely can know what's ours and not ours. It's when it comes to these emotions. And so, yeah, just inviting her soul to come and practice with you and to heal is beautiful.
Yeah, I have a feeling she's busy right now.
Yeah.
And we actually, I'm very proud of us. My younger brother wanted to create a ritual where she was in an open casket for
Mm.
3 days because he felt that he, according to what his beliefs are, that it takes 3 days for the soul to sort of like get to where it's going.
Mm.
And it gave people an opportunity to come and to say goodbye, or
Mm.
to have conversations with, have a conversation with her. And I mean, it's kind of like a surreal scene. There's my mother, in her living room,
Yeah.
and sometimes we're there, and sometimes we're in the kitchen, or sometimes, and but at the very end, I did sit down with her and had a conversation, and it
Mm.
was good because it gave me the opportunity to realize some things that had not been sitting right with me.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
so and I'm sharing this openly with people, so just to encourage you all to
Mm.
to do that, and seek out people like yourself, and do the work that assists us
Mm.
in healing ourselves, because our parents have a huge input. My mother was a very complicated woman, and just
Mm.
like you said before, it's always there's the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Mhm.
And it was very important to all of us that we represent her, truthfully,
Mm.
but in a respectful way. And I think we did this very well. And because all of that, not just there's the before, there's the doing, there's the after,
Mhm.
and so much gets healed or not healed or re-injured,
Yeah.
doing that whole process. So and when I look back in the last months, I'm like, my God, we really climbed the mountain, and we did it well, and I think she'd be proud of us.
Yeah. Yeah, I love hearing that. I would call it, yeah, a death ritual. Every culture has them so distinct. And um, what's really important to me when I get to work with people before they die is that the dying person gets to say what they want. There's some collaboration with siblings, family members, because you
Mm,
add in heightened emotion and then all logic and reason goes out the door. All of a sudden it's like, ah.
my
But when you get to have a say and when you're not about to die, it's can be kind of fun to plan your funeral. I did an event like that once, plan your own funeral to live your best life.
Oh God, that sounds intense.
But it wasn't in that the way I set it up, it was like, but enough that people got to think of it. But I was actually saying to my mother recently, because when I lost my father, I got really like worried about losing my mom. I think it's really natural.
Yeah.
And also to be sure that I can honor her in the way that she wants to be honored. And for anybody that's listening that has a parent or has a parent who's sick, it's really do whatever you need to do to be complete with your parent. Say what you need to say. And not everything has to be said to them directly, it might be with another practitioner sometimes. We don't want to bring harm at the end of life when somebody can't hear something, but often the people that I have been with, like you just said, are waiting for probably a close family member, a child, a spouse, someone where there's incompletion. It's really, really common. And it's amazing, right? You don't even know what you're like mad about sometimes. It's like, there's so many little paper cuts in our relationships with
Oh,
our parents.
yeah, it's so complicated. I was able to do that with my dad. I really was able to be complete with him. And, when he passed, it was just, I was good. It just, it tells me, okay, my dear, it's more time for you to like look at your relationship with your mother. And of course, most of my parents were divorced, and I spent all my first 20 years of my life with my mother. And it was, much more complicated. And I was the only girl. And I had the realization that now that she's passed, I'm sort of like the oldest
Yeah.
next female of that generation.
Yep.
And all of a sudden I saw, and I live in Israel and they live in Germany. I saw the opportunity that was presenting itself to me. And
Hmm.
I'm also the middle child, how to bring everybody together. And I'm like, oh, I'm taking it. I'm stepping right through that door, and I'm taking that opportunity. And I know she would be pleased, even though I can always hear the little criticism in her voice. But she'd be like, yeah, you're doing it good. And she probably would have never imagined. I always say my mother was ill for so long because in the last sort of 4 years that we've taken care of her, she allowed herself to be nurtured and loved by her children. And she couldn't really before that. And she really, I mean, mostly my older brother, I give credit to him, took good care of her. And she was able to die in her own home, how she wanted it.
Yeah.
So that's a gift.
It is. It absolutely is. It is. Yeah.
So, well, I appreciate you sharing your wisdom and listening to what I have to say about it.
Yeah.
It's a lot. I'm going to switch the subject for a moment. I want to talk a little bit about inspiring people because even we're talking about death and dying. I wanted to see how do you inspire yourself, or how do you inspire the world? I mean, you were a landmark forum leader, that's a big responsibility.
Well, I didn't lead the Landmark Forum. I led the self-expression and leadership program.
Oh, well, that's also a big responsibility.
Yeah, I was on staff. And interestingly, I'll answer the question this way. When I went on staff at Landmark, and that's what I wrote in my bio, I traveled the world. That's all that mattered to me for a long time. And it really was death that snapped the meaning of my life into place. Death can be a really beautiful mirror to look at what's not fulfilled for you. And when I went on staff, my soul was nervous because I was not used to being that controlled, to be quite frank. I am and was a very free person. And what I found when I became a registration fulfillment manager, which meant what I consider, which is what the world I think really needs, is holding. I held space for people to fulfill what mattered to them. So from the time they registered to the completion of whatever course they were in. And for me, it was ultimately through the whole curriculum, Landmark Forum Advanced Course, SELP, because by the time somebody gets to the self-expression and leadership program, they are hopefully expressing something that's meaningful to them. And it is infinite. There are people who want to bring their neighborhood together. There are moms who are new moms that want to have baby meetup groups. There are people who want to raise $1 million for their local fire department. Like I supported. That was so fulfilling for me to support people in fulfilling what mattered to them. But it always started with healing in the Landmark Forum. And it's the same now, right? Until we have a basic level of healing, we don't create truly. Like it's hard to create on top of really deep wounding. And so, but I was speaking yesterday at a college and I asked, before I offered a blessing, I asked these young people to consider if they were to die tomorrow, what would have been unfulfilled for them as a dream. And nobody would answer. And then I put them in a paired chair and then it was like, I was like, okay, great. Now what?
Right.
And of course, it's no deviation ever from seeing more of the world or seeing more of my family. It was just variations of that. And one of the young girls said, she said, I bet they're 20. It's like, all we do is work full-time jobs. We go to school full-time. And if we died, we wouldn't have even lived.
Wow.
And I was like, that's a pretty big statement. And partly for me, why I'm such an advocate for travel, if you want to do it, some people really don't have that in their soul calling, but if you do, you will never regret it. I mean, I think people learn so much. We need to understand other cultures. We need to know how to navigate ourselves in other worlds with other beliefs. Our compassion grows immensely when we travel. And so for me, it's like if somebody has that desire, especially something that's gonna, I know, teach them in like earth school, I inspire, and I really hope to inspire and encourage them to do that, because I don't know anybody who says they wish they worked harder. They wish that they had, held that grudge longer. Nobody says that at the end of their life. And I have had to learn, though, everybody does have different goals or different, some people really want to own a home and tend that home and have a farm. Okay, do that, because we do all have different tasks that we were given when we came here. So
I love what you say. I mean, I think travel is super important, because how are we ever going to get along with all these different cultures
yeah,
if we don't have the compassion, the empathy to understand them?
yeah,
And I lived in Nicaragua. I've traveled, not like you, but lived on 3 different continents.
yeah,
It expands our horizon, and it helps us. And I think the question is always really to look at, what am I manifesting, and what is my base? Am I manifesting to avoid the pain and run away from my anger or my fear or my whatever is unresolved? Or am I really truly manifesting because I've taken the time to take a look at, who am I really and what is it that I want to create? So one of the things I always have my clients do in the beginning is look at their values. What is really important to them? And sort of like based on the theory of, if you live your values, then all the stuff that you want, contentment, happiness, it will be the byproduct. And to the extent that you're not living your values, then you're going to experience, the opposite.
disharmony. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and, sometimes we make decisions that we go, oh, that was not a decision that was not a decision that supported my value. And, society has us, but you must be like this, and you must do like this, and, has us in the box. And it's not easy to always then change it. So it's a delicate dance, but it does require us to take a look and be honest and vulnerable and open to see, where are we still wounded, and what are our patterns, and what's the same stuff I'm doing still 60 years later that I wish I wasn't doing.
Yeah, I have this image, and it also happened when I went through my near-death experience. I call it the, like, movie clips of life. When somebody's dying or you experience near death, you think about, like, what are the highlight reels of your life?
Yeah.
Those are the things that bring you joy, and often they're not that radical. It's not like the craziest things. It's just these moments with people, new discovery, having peace. And those are the things that we can then go toward more of. And I know for me, though, when my dad died, it actually was a huge shift away from traveling for me. And I was really shocked. But part of what happened was my stability and safety structure, because I lost my brothers and my grandfather. So in that way, there were not many men above me. I did not know that the men in my life indirectly provided safety to me to travel around the world. And all of a sudden it was like, I'm not safe. And I never felt not safe. I always felt safe in the world. I mean, the craziest stuff. I was in Germany in 1999 as a teenager alone for spring break, and I lost my camcorder on the train, and somebody got it back to me a day later. Like, things just always went my way. Like, and so and then it was really interesting. And now I'm 41. That experience was at 33. Travel does matter, and I am traveling, but now I travel with the purpose of developing, healing, or offering service. That's why I travel. It's not just and there's nothing wrong with the checkbox, oh, I saw XYZ, but now, so it's like aligned. And that's what I think is available to us through loss. And we can align deeper to what matters and do things that are meaningful.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Is there a person that really inspires you?
Yeah, I work with Angie Mattingly, who was a Landmark Forum leader, and Angie and I met. My first real memory of Angie, I was working on staff in a Landmark center, and it was before an evening event, and I was standing in the back, and Angie looked at me and she said, "Sara, do you believe in life after love?" I was like, so I started singing Share to her, Believe. You believe in life after love, right? And she was like,
Right.
"Oh." And she said, "What are you going to do with your voice?" And I was like, "I don't know, lead the SCLP." And why Angie's inspiring to me is she's always listening with this, like, surgical listening. to what's important and what's someone's expression. And she, over the years that we were on staff together, she would give me opportunities to sing for the leader body. I sang for Nancy Zapolsky's retirement.
Ooh.
I sang at like, fun times. I would sing to her for her birthday. And there weren't many people that gave me the platform to share my voice in just such a fun way.
Mm.
And then she got breast cancer, and I knew about it soul to soul before she told anybody. It was very odd. And it was at the time where, you didn't talk about it. The way that Landmark was is like, you didn't want to cause upset. So anyway, she ended up leaving Landmark and literally completely changed her life. And I received a spiritual message when I was actually having a miscarriage, but I didn't know it because I was in the tub, like kind of, when you're like really sick and you're like, ooh, it's like you're in another planet. And I'm getting this message for Angie, and I hadn't talked to her in like 9 months. And I send her this message: you must be grieving the death of your time as a Landmark Forum leader and be in a totally new world that many people do not understand. And we have been connected ever since. And she is living completely true to her soul and her soul's path, and really always looking to break down anything that's between her and people and serving people. And she really deals with herself. We call it purification, right? We're purifying something. She was just in India with Saima, and she really does inspire me. And I don't know anybody that can hold thousands of people in such an indirect way, but she absolutely has improved my life, given me opportunities. We work together and plan retreats together now. I manage all her retreats and online programs. And that's just like, where did that even come from? Right. It was like, it's amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
That inspires me. Yeah.
No, I always say we can't really plan it as well as we can allow it when we put the intention out there for what we want. And then we just, let's let it go, and we'll just see what shows up. And you're like, oh my God, how did that perfectly show up at the perfect time? So
yeah.
That's awesome. Anything else you want to share with the listeners before we sort of like wrap up for today?
Well, I didn't get to talk a lot about it, but I'm happy to, if people are interested, I offer like about once a month a free soul cafe. The next one's going to be for the spring equinox, which I really love. I actually personally feel like that's the start of the year. Like when we start generating energy into spring, coming out of our hopefully rest in the winter. So that'll be March 21st or 20th, whatever it says on my website. And there's a free book in there called The Greatest Love. And it's a book that was written by my spiritual teacher, Dr. Master Shah, and it is in the heart space. So if you are dealing with grief, the book is free. You just pay shipping, and it has a calligraphy that you can start to understand a little bit more about the soul healing specifically. That's who I learned from. And I love it because if you're somebody who is challenged by sitting quietly and meditating, or to actually like focus on a calligraphy, trace it, it just allows you to be a little bit more engaged and in that field of greatest love and heal your own grief. So that's a sweet, simple tool that I find easy to use by anybody. So.
Cool. So, and we're going to have all that in the show notes so people can get a hold of you, and they can find out when you have your events or what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I encourage you guys who are listening to reach out to Sara.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Last final words. You have a favorite quote or a tip that you want to share with people?
My favorite quote is, I have the power to heal myself. You have the power to heal yourself. And together we have the power to heal the world.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sara. It's been a pleasure. And I wish you all the best for all the things that you're doing and how you're making a difference in the world, inspiring people. And who knows, until we should meet again.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Barbara. I appreciate you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Here are the takeaways from my podcast with Sara Aumann. Number 1, create rituals and ceremonies that honor the complexity of relationships with those who've passed. Number 2, recognize grief's physical impact and give yourself space and gentleness during the process. Number 3, consider how ancestral souls can be invited to participate in your healing journey if that calls to you. Number 4, explore how you can transform inherited patterns rather than simply carrying or returning them. And number 5, use loss as an opportunity to clarify and pursue what truly matters to you. Thank you so much for listening. Please subscribe, and until I see you again, take care.
All right, action takers, as we wrap up today's episode, I want you to know that I believe in you. Each of you has the power to create positive change in your life, no matter where you're starting from. Remember, it's okay to take small steps. Every bit of progress counts. And the sooner you can take action, the better, because your saboteur loves to create doubt and confusion. If you enjoyed what you heard today, you know what I'll ask of you. Like, subscribe, leave Apple and Spotify ratings and reviews, tell a friend, and generally do all the things you would do to support a podcast you love. Your support helps this message reach more people who might need to hear it, especially right now. I'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode to support you on your journey. Until then, this is Dr. Barbara reminding you that you're worthy of an extraordinary life. Be kind to yourself as you work towards your goals, and remember, I am rooting for you every step of the way.